Okay, we're now live with our recording. Um, One of the things that I wanted to talk about is resources that you have for preparing a CMA. And we've gone through how to actually, do it, but I think it's good to realize that there are a lot of resources that we should consider when we go to prepare a CMA. One of the resources I think that sometimes we neglect, but I think it's an important resource for us to use, is Zillow. Now, why in the world would we want to use Zillow for a CMA when we know how wildly inaccurate the Zestimates can be? Why would we want to use Zillow? Anybody?
Because our clients are going to use Zillow.
There you go, Blake. Because our clients are going to use Zillow. So it's a good idea to go on Zillow, look at the Zestimate so that you see what your client is seeing, what they've probably already done before they called you or emailed you or texted you. They've probably already looked on Zillow and gotten an idea. So you need to look on Zillow just to see what they're seeing. And it might tip you off if you see a wildly inaccurate Zestimate. It might be an indicator to you that either you have good news, in other words, it's wildly inaccurate on the low side, which is seldom, or you have bad news, which it's wildly inaccurate on the high side. So Zillow is a resource that you should explore just for a basis of what they may be seeing. The next resource that I tend to use, so if somebody calls me up and they want to list their house, the first thing I want to do is look it up on NAR, or RPR. So this is RPR that we're looking at here. And you can just type in any address that you might want to look at. So let's say I want to look at this one. This is one that I've typed in the past, and it's a listing that I hope to have coming soon. Okay, so if I were going to list this house, I can pull it up on RPR, and it does a number of things for me. Even if it's not listed, it gives me the information about the house. So the first thing it does is it gives me an estimate of value. And this estimate of value is way better than the Zestimate that you saw over on Zillow. And to explain these estimates of value, there's two estimates of value that RPR uses. One is what we call RVM, which is Realtor Valuation Method. And the other is AVM, which is Average Valuation Method. And RVM is the more accurate of the two. And so this is what they've estimated for the value of this house, 516. And they're saying that the value range is from 449 to 583. And they have a 4-star confidence that this range is accurate. So right off, you've got a starting point for your CMA with some values. You also have some additional information down here. First of all, you can go through and you can change things in here. So for instance, it's showing 3 garage spaces on the property facts. But if you look here, 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is incorrect. There are not 3 garage places, there are 2 garage places. So you can correct that on here, and you can save it, which I've done. You can also make notes and etc. And one of the things that you can do on this, that will vary the value. So what you can do is you can refine values on properties here. So you can go in and edit a value. And this is only for you, by the way. This doesn't change it for anyone else. But what you can do is you can go in here and do things like, okay, this house, after seeing it, I saw that it had a major kitchen remodel and that it had a bath remodel. And so I gave some value for that. And so that increased the value of the property for that. So at any rate, and you can use slider things here to refine the value. I think we've talked about that in some other times, but at any rate, you can go back and you can do that that type of thing. Whoops. I wanted to go back here to Coldite. Wrong button. Okay, the other thing that you can do if you scroll down the page.
RPR?
Somebody said something?
Yes, me. Is that RPR?
That's RPR.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool. If you come down here, you can see some interesting information about it, the legal description and school information and owner information. So, this tells you that it's owner occupied. It tells you how this property is handled. So it's in a trust. And it gives you some public record information here in terms of that, even some sales and financing activity. Now this house is owned outright. There's no mortgage on it, so there's no information on that on here. But a lot of times, if you look at it, you'll see when their mortgage was recorded and et cetera. So this is a great tool to use before you even go out and meet with a client and when you're first starting your CMA. The next step, of course, is Connect BLC. So we will go there. Now, using all of these resources, whether it's Zillow, RPR, the BLC, you need to think like an appraiser because ultimately an appraiser is going to be appraising this property that you're trying to sell. So it's important to think like an appraiser. And appraisers, oh, look, they fixed something here a little bit, not much. At any rate, I don't know if you noticed this, but this now works. This client activity page. Let's see if it goes back further. Yeah, there you go. So this is now working. It wasn't working for a while. I did put a ticket in on it. It's interesting. I never got a response to this, but it's now working. Hey, they fixed something. So at any rate, think like an appraiser. So here's how appraisers think. And I know this from talking to numerous appraisers. The first thing that they do is they want to find comps in the same neighborhood. That's their first choice, same neighborhood. Preferably, they like all the comps to be within 90 days. They'd like to find one comp that's within the last 30 days. They'd like to find one comp that's in the last 60 days and one or more comps that's in the past, within the past 90 days. Now, for a lot of neighborhoods, that's not possible. So they will go further back, but the further back they go, the less reliable their appraisal is going to be. But that's the first place they look, is the neighborhood. So generally you want to search, so if you're doing a search for a CMA and you open up your residential search here, this is really fast. I think you're noticing. I'm kidding. You want to go in here and look for your subdivision. So the property that I looked at a little while ago is in River Glen. And so I want to find River Glen neighborhood and search in that subdivision. And there's no active properties in that subdivision. So I've obviously am going to have to look for pending and sold properties. And so I go 180 days back right now. Let's see what I get. There's 3 matches in here. So I can look at those results and see if it's returning what I need. All right, well, we've got 3 solds in the last 6 months. So these are theoretically good comparables for us to use. Now, if we want more comparables, we can go further back. And I can tell you there's a comparable further back that sold for 580 in this neighborhood. So you're basically, you're going to look for the comparables in the neighborhood. Now, one of the reasons that you want it in that particular neighborhood versus a map searches can be very deceiving. So for instance, if I did a map search in this neighborhood, there is one street in this neighborhood that has 800 to $1 million homes on that street. It's just one street. It's not in River Glen, but if I did a map search, it's right across the pond from this particular listing. So if I did a map search, I'd be pulling up listings that are way higher priced, and they're not good comparables for this listing. That's why appraisers like to use all the comps in the same neighborhood. If you can't get them in the same neighborhood, then a map search is the next best choice. They like the comps to be within 1 mile of the subject property. Again, that can be very difficult, particularly if you're dealing with a rural property. It can be very difficult to find something within 1 mile. And so you have to go further out. So what you do when you're using the BLC as a resource for preparing a CMA, think like an appraiser, work from the best on out. So you're going to work from one neighborhood and you're going to try to get comps within 90 days. If you can't get them within 90 days, move it out to 6 months. If you can't get it within 6 months, move it out to a year, but try to get comps, enough comps in the actual neighborhood with that actual subdivision or legal description. That's your first choice. Those comps are going to be the ones that the appraiser is going to want to use. Keep in mind, what's the appraiser need to do? The appraiser, the reason they think the way they do, they have to justify this value of this property for the bank. So they have to say, okay, this property is worth this. And so they're putting their reputation on the line that it is worth what they say it's worth. So we need to think the same way. We're putting our reputation on the line, saying that we think it's worth a certain market value, and that needs to line up with what the appraiser says. And we need to be able to justify our pricing to an appraiser. So think of it as if the appraiser called you up on the phone and said, hey, Jim, how in the world did you value this property at $580,000? What comps did you use to justify that price? And so now I have to justify that to that appraiser. That's just, you have to think that way. Okay, so I need to be able to justify this price. If I'm going to ask this price, then I need to have justification for that price. So the BLC is a place to get price, important information about listings to help you prepare your CMA. Then there's one other place that you can go for great. Oh, by the way, once you've selected your comparables, there's 2 CMAs that you can prepare. Okay, there's a regular CMA, which is this little graph thing here. This prepares a regular CMA, so it opens up a CMA for you to be able to prepare an actual CMA and make adjustments and things of that sort. I've shown you how to do that in prior videos, so I'm not going to go into that. But there's also right next to it is the CMA summary report or quick statistics. This is the old quick CMA that we used to do, where it gives you the price per square foot and et cetera. So if you click on that, it will give you these statistics about the property. So it shows you the high, the low, the average, the median, sold price. It gives you a lot of information about this particular property. And so you can also do this. You can show quick statistics. It breaks it out a little different for you. So you have different ways that you can look at this data. So a quick CMA can sometimes be a good tool to use, particularly before you've visited the property. And a lot of times I will print this out and take it with me so that I can show the prospect what's going on in the neighborhood. And that helps get their pricing to be more realistic. Then another place where you can go is up here with a little world thing, the tax records. So you can pull up in here, you can pull up your data for taxes. So you could look at Coldike here in the tax record. And it's going to tell you all the information about this property, sale history. So you can see that they bought it in 1998. And it gives you the assessments and the taxes. So this is good information if you're going to be able to list this. And again, it gives you a lot of information about this property that is useful. This is where you can get your flood zone, for instance. So it's always important to check your flood zone, lest you be blindsided by that. I listed a property. It was over in Carmel on a golf course. Forget the name of the neighborhood now. But I trusted the owner because I asked him about it because there was a pond and it was White River was kind of back there, and so I asked him about it. Was it floodplain? He said no. I asked him, did he pay flood
Plum
insurance?
Creek.
No. Well, it wasn't a floodplain, and so we found this out later on. Fortunately, we found it out in time to do something about it. And so we did find out it was in a floodplain. We were able, though, it was in a floodplain because of the recent change in the flood maps. And so it wasn't in a floodplain when he bought it. It was in a floodplain when we're getting ready to sell it. And so we were able to get someone to come out, a surveyor, and we petitioned to get it removed from the floodplain because of the elevation of the property. And we were successful doing that. So we got it out of the floodplain. But it's important to look at that information. And this is where you're going to find that the best source for that is right here in this. It's also going to show you the lot dimensions and things of that sort. And so you can see that this lot goes right on out into the pond. So there's no public or what do you call it, HOA owned land out here. It goes all the way out. This is important because if you're gonna advertise this property, you can, on this property, you could say it's on a pond. If there is a strip of HOA property here that's owned by the HOA, you cannot say that it's on the pond. You could say pond view, but you cannot say it's on the pond because it's not. It's on a easement for the HOA. So if there's a HOA easement here, you can't say it's on a pond. So it's important to look at this parcel and how this parcel's arranged so that you can see, okay, this parcel extends out into the pond. So this literally is on the pond. So it helps you with how you're going to be able to market this property and things of that sort. So the tax record is important. It's also going to show you interesting information too about maybe other things that are going on with the property. I went out with a buyer on Saturday. I guess it was Saturday. At any rate, we looked at a house that was investor owned, and the investor had purchased it at a tax sale. And by looking at the tax record, I could find out that they purchased it for $130,000. They were marketing it for $180,000. So they were looking to make $50,000 for doing nothing, basically, for buying it at the tax sale and then reselling it. Because they weren't, they had not touched the property. In fact, they refused to even turn the utilities on for an inspection. The buyer would have to turn the utilities on, pay any past due amounts in order to get the utilities turned on so that they could inspect this property. So my client declined doing it. It was in pretty rugged shape. It'd been vacant for 3 years prior to being sold at a tax sale, but it was an interesting property and brought up some interesting things for an investor who does buy it. There were 2 cars in the garage, for instance. So what do you do with 2 cars that theoretically are registered at some point and titled? They had Indiana plates on them, but the plates were expired and they'd been sitting in there for 3 years. So interesting property. So at any rate, that gets you prepared to do a CMA and prepares you to think like an appraiser. So any questions on that?
How do you get there? I didn't see that part.
You didn't see what?
How do you get to the property report?
This right here?
Yes,
Okay.
all the information. How do you get there?
Okay, to go to the property report, okay, I'm gonna, it keeps your recent properties, but I'm gonna come up here and search. So, you know, if I want 7135 Cold Dyke, I just type in 7135. And as I start typing, it brings it up on the screen. So it's right here. So I click on it and then I hit submit and it's going to bring it up. This is one that I already looked up in the past. That's why it saves the, you know, the nice thing is it saves your prior searches. So if you've searched for a property any time along here, it will have that search for you. So you can find it again real easy. One of the things when you're using this, by the way, make sure you're in the right county. It's going to default to a county. I think it defaults to the last county you use. So you want to make sure you're using the right county.
You can put 4 counties in there.
Pardon?
You can put up to 4 counties in that
Yes,
box.
you can put more counties in. Yes. Yes. And less information is better. So, you know, like I say, when you start typing, you'll see results start showing up, and look down there and pick those results as soon as one shows up that's your property. Sometimes if you put too much information in, it won't find the property. So less is better on that. Any other questions? Okay, hopefully that will help you with your CMAs.
Wait,
And
you asked if I have questions. Hey, even though I asked, can you go back to steps to see what you got there? Because I think I was distracted at that point and I don't know.
Oh, you
how-
mean how I got to the tax records?
Yes,
Sure. So what, if I can get this thing out of my way here, yeah. There we go. Got it moved out of my way, but okay. So I'm in the BLC and this little world, if you
Mhm.
hover over that, it comes up and it says tax.
got it.
See
Okay.
that where it says tax? So if you click on that, that takes you to the CRS system. That's the new tax record system that we're using. So that takes you to CRS and you can look up the information
Okay.
there.
Good.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Hope this was helpful to you. And we're out of time, so I'll let everybody go. And I'll see you next week. Have a
Thank
great day.
You
Bye.
too.